How many people here for the first time? Yeah, good number. Good. Okay, name is Brian Peskin. I'm an engineer by training. So first question, what the heck would an engineer know about physiology? Well, it's because the physician's recommendations made my wife worse as a diabetic that I got into the field. So she was in her 30s and became type 1, doing, quote, everything right. Thin, exercise, aerobics was big at the time, so heavy into that. Low fat, high carb, just what she was told. 122 pounds, 5'6", 5'7". Became type 1 diabetic. Then goes to Whitaker's seminar, big doctor out in California, comes back, she's worse following his recommendations. I said, well, this costs thousands of dollars. Didn't you say something to him? She goes, no, they send the blood chemistry back after you've left. I said, well, now I know why. Because you get worse and they don't send it to you until you're back home and can't do anything. So that got me into this, and I spent about 5 years in the medical library because what do you do if you don't know anything about the nutritional field? Well, you go to the bookstore. So I went to the bookstore and one book by Atkins, high protein, high fat, no carbs. Then you get another book by Ornish, just the opposite. So you go, who do I believe? Well, I don't believe anybody. I believe science. So my number one thing to everybody sitting here is don't listen to the person, listen to the science. All a person telling you anything can do is, sounds interesting or sounds like he's referencing a lot of science. I'll check this. If they don't give you science, and by science I do not mean studies. Studies are not science. Science is textbook of physiology, basic medical biochemistry. It's either biochemistry or physiology. There's only two things in medical science, that's it. These are the textbooks all the physicians learn from. So after about 5 years of being in the medical library, MD Anderson, biggest cancer center in the world, 300,000 volumes. They know everything. There are medical journals going back to 1839, the Lancet. I had my hands on it. 1900, it was absolutely known what cancer and heart disease were, 100%. So anybody that tells you, oh, it wasn't tracked or we didn't know, nonsense. The disease levels didn't exist, 5%, less than 5%, both cancer and heart disease. That's all existed back then. If you go to an old cemetery, take a look at how some of these people lived, 80s, 90s. They lived a long time. Then the doctors will go, oh, we've extended life so much. No, you haven't. It's conditional probability. Back in the 1900s, 20% never made it to 20. They got the flu, they died. So it's a conditional probability. So the question is, given that you didn't die by age 20, what's the probability you live to 70 or 80? It's almost the same as it is today. Now, today they keep everybody alive in a nursing home, a zombie. That doesn't count. That's what they do. So they say we've extended life, we've extended breathing. You didn't extend anybody's decent life. So after about 5 years of this, it's my goodness. The science says this. All the nutritionists and even the medical field are saying the exact opposite. Something's got to be done, so I started writing. And luckily, people started looking. Today, it's a very different story. You're inundated in the internet. It's called information overload. Everybody thinks they're an expert. Everybody's at the same level because they can spit something out on a website. 90% of it is garbage. And the problem is, how do you discern the garbage from the truth? If there's not a pile of science referenced, don't believe a word of it. And here's how bad it is. And I talked a little bit about this, but I always prepare for coming here. I pulled the last 6 months or so of articles that come out in the paper, medical journals. CDC, that's the Center for Disease Control, federal agency, whistleblower to extend MMR vaccine fraud. So the CDC did a study with mumps, measles, and rubella, that's MMR, ties to autism. And they buried the link because there is one. You're overdosing the nervous system of an infant. That's why you get the problems with autism. So they buried that. Horrible. Another one, everybody here heard 8 glasses, 8 ounces a day of water, right? Absolutely wrong. Proceedings of National Academy of Science, October 2016, only drink water when thirsty. Getting overdosed on water. Your sensation for thirst is one of your biggest ones. If you're thirsty as the dickens, you're about 2 to 3% towards dehydration. Not even close. So all these people running around in the park and everything with water bottles, absolute insanity. Another big one just came out. This is March 2016. Avoiding the sun. Avoiding the sun. Not being in the sun. Avoiding it is as dangerous as smoking. This was in Journal of Internal Medicine. Every physician in the world is saying stay out of the sun, right? You need the sun. How sugar industry made fat to blame. Big scandal. Harvard chairs of nutrition way back were paid by the sugar industry to make all the heart problems and diabetes problems tied to fat instead of sugar. They paid them. So you have Harvard being bought off. You have the Center for Disease Control committing fraud. Here's another article. They don't even know what they're looking at. Little data backs call for low-carb diets. And they admit that a low-carb diet produces much less insulin. Well, if you're diabetic, you have a problem with insulin production or the reception of that insulin into the cell membrane. They're acting like they don't understand this is good. It doesn't matter if it's high carb or low carb. This is New York Times, this article. So you have doctors don't even understand what they're looking at. Here was another one in cancer. Can math crack cancer's code? And they're admitting here, and this is September 25th, 2016, Wall Street Journal. The more we understand, it's not a single gene that's gone rogue. The premise of mutation-based therapy approach is wrong. Cancer is not genetic. How many of you heard that before? If you haven't heard me talk about this. No, even the doctors don't get it. They're 10 years behind the time. The guy that came up with the term oncogene, meaning the cancer-causing gene, reversed it 10 years ago. Nobody heard it. It's Weinberg at MIT. It's not genetic at all. It doesn't end. There's another one on the persistent health myth of 8 glasses of water a day. Doctors talking about how he wrote that this is all nonsense and how he thought he'd make a big difference, and it changed absolutely nothing. So once the lie is out there, it stays out there. Here's a great thing called the misinformation age. I think it's another New York Times one. A field guide to lies. Even many doctors don't grasp how often false positives occur on medical tests. So you're getting a medical test, you want to ask, what's the chance that it says I have it when I really don't? And many of these tests are awfully high. So they're telling you got a disease, you don't have it. It's called a false positive. It's a very big problem in testing. Another one, everybody heard breakfast, the most important meal of the day, right? Another New York Times one, May 2016. Sorry, there's nothing magical about breakfast. I've been telling people this for years. You don't need any breakfast. I almost never have breakfast. Never feel bad about skipping a meal if you're not hungry. I mean, it's a full-page article. Another New York Times one, May 2. The lost weight, the body finds it. For many Biggest Loser contestants, pounds came back with a vengeance. So this is these forced diets where they do huge calorie restriction temporarily, because on things like shows like this, they have trainers that don't let them eat anything. It comes back. The minute you go back to anything normal, you typically get fatter after the diet. It's very standard. This is front page. Absolute front page. It just doesn't end. So what got me going into all this was, what is the one thing that's common to all socioeconomic levels? Because you have rich people that have heart disease and cancer, you have poor people, you have every socioeconomic group. So what's the only thing that crosses all these paths? Food. Okay. What specifically? That tells me nothing. It's too general. What's in every cell that could be doing this? And it has to be something that can be altered, because there has to be a problem. Well, it turns out proteins and carbohydrates, they're not really altered too much, but the fats are. And you have, it's called a lipid bilipid membrane in every cell. So there's fat around every cell you have, and you have 100 trillion, not 100 million, 100 trillion cells. And 25% to 33% are composed of a fat called an essential fat. That's parent omega-6, parent omega-3. These two fats your body can't make. So if you don't get them from food in the proper form that they work, you're going to have 100 trillion cells that don't work right. And it turns out, to get long shelf life, the food processors have to adulterate the omega-6. Okay, not the omega-3. That's never used in food processing. You never say fry in omega-3 oils like flax oil. It's never done because it's too reactive. So all the oil problem is in the omega-6. That's sunflower oil, canola oil, safflower oil. And what they do is they stop the oxygen transfer. And you could prove that because if you go to the supermarket and you smell the fish section, there's a smell, right? That's the oils going bad. Rancid is the term. Oxidation is the term. Same thing. So anybody that has dark age spots on their skin, it's called lipofuscin. That is oxidized oils that you ate. That's what did it. Didn't come on its own, and it shouldn't be there. Can also have them inside the body. So that's one way you can tell how much bad oils you've had. Just look at your skin. Hard to reverse it, but it can be done. You know, over time. It takes a while. So this is interesting. Then I came across Otto Warburg's work. Otto Warburg was the greatest physiologist of the 20th century. MD, PhD, Nobel Prize winner. Absolutely brilliant, German. Conclusively showed lack of cellular oxygen is the prime cause of cancer. Not in the bloodstream, because everybody has enough there. You have athletes getting cancer all the time. It's in the cell. So why the heck could that happen? And I figured out it's because of the processed oils where the cell membrane doesn't work. So it turns out you have 100 trillion cells that have to have the omega-6 that's organic and actually works, which gives the oxygen transfer, and your mitochondria, which is the energy producers. There's typically can be hundreds of them in a cell. So in addition to the 100 trillion cells you have hundreds of millions, if not way more, mitochondria. And the parent omega-6 is a prime component of them. So by having processed cooking oils in food, and go to any fast food restaurant, all those oils are bad because they use stuff called extenders. So they get huge life of that cooking oil. They don't throw it away, they just filter it. And they don't want it going bad, and it doesn't go bad, but it's like a plastic. So we eat it, goes into our cell. Just imagine a plastic cell membrane. What can go through it? Nothing. And this is called insulin sensitivity, right? That's a type 2 diabetic. The insulin doesn't work. Your body makes it. Insulin resistance. Well, if you have a plastic cell membrane, how the heck is it going to use the insulin it gets? It can't. How is any cell going to have the functionality of letting things go back and forth? And the cell membrane itself is critical for the oxygen transfer. The oxygen can come right from the cell membrane. It can't break apart. It's like glued together. So this is the biggest problem in America today. It's not this fish oil nonsense. Those are called long-chain metabolites or derivatives. So your body takes the parent omega-3 and it makes the DHA, EPA as needed, what it wants. So if you're taking fish oil capsules, how many of you are? I hope not too many. You're getting overdosed on a daily basis by 20 to 500 times too much. If you're wondering what that is, take 20 aspirin and see how you are, or try 500. You're going to be dead. That's what we're doing on a daily basis. Now, fish oil is not the answer. It's not fundamental. Yes, there is 14% of it in the brain, and yes, there is a lot of it in the eye, but your body makes that automatically. It doesn't need your help from fish oil. Fish oil, by the way, is an antifreeze for a fish. They live in very frigid water, so they don't turn into an ice cube. Nature doesn't use alcohol because you'd have a drunk fish. It uses long-chain fats. So these oils are very hard to freeze. Just like vodka won't freeze. Put it in the freezer and it stays fluid, right? So we're not living in 30-degree water, are we? You take these oils and they go rancid immediately in the body. You go, well, your brain has it. How the heck is that staying okay? Because you have natural levels of antioxidants to stop the problem. But when you're taking fish oil in the doses they tell you, it is called a super physiologic amount. You can't get enough antioxidants to make it not go bad. So that stuff is going bad immediately. Fish oil is not food for a human being. Skin, your skin, 100% parent omega-6. Okay, so if you're not getting fully metabolically active omega-6, your skin is going to burn when you're out in the sun fast. You can get skin cancer. This is why dermatologists don't have a clue how to stop skin cancer. They're telling everybody just stay inside, don't go out in the sun. And there's skin cancer even if you're not out in the sun. So there has to be more to it, but they don't have a clue. Dermatologists have no idea. It has to be something in the skin, and it is. I used to get headaches all the time before I knew this by being out in the sun, and I burn fast. Now, you can still burn if you stay out for an hour straight without building up to it, but the headaches are gone. So your body tells you what's right for it. There's not enough differentiation. Everybody says omega-6 is bad. No, it isn't. When you look at the tissue levels, you have 11 times more omega-6 than you do omega-3 in your body. What's bad is the adulterated omega-6. I only saw one article making the difference. Actually calling it processed, adulterated, non-functional omega-6 is the problem, because the unprocessed omega-6 is what nature designed us to run on. So it's like having a car with 2 cylinders gone. Well, it's not going to run right, is it? You have an 8-cylinder car, you only have 6, you plug up the other 2. That's what you're making your body work right. Or you could say it's the fuel. But this is actual structure. It's not just a fuel. You're not just burning this up. This is the brick and mortar that makes you. So if you don't have the unprocessed, fully functional omega-6, and you need some omega-3, system is screwed up. Nature never thought we would be so stupid as to process our food. This is why margarine is called a plastic food. If a plastics engineer looks at margarine, the molecular structure is like a plastic. Now, if you think eating plastic is good, you got a big problem. And even worse, it's making your cells. It's as stupid as sawdust. This is fiber. Fiber is sawdust, by the way. So anybody taking fiber supplements, throw them in the ash can. It irritates. And actually, it's how bad the medical profession is. In 1999, both Lancet and the New England Journal of Medicine, 2002, published women taking the most fiber got the most colon cancer. Now, it's like that never existed, and they're back on fiber. See, the problem in the medical field is they never use prior research to build on. I like engineering shows, and there's one thing called, I think, Impossible Engineering or something on Discovery. It's great. And they always talk about things like the biggest bridge, the tallest building, how did we figure out how to do this? And it's always, well, we went 60 years back in the past, and there was a brilliant engineer named blah, blah, and he came up with this. And then 30 years ago, another brilliant engineer came up with that. And then another one came up with this. So you put the 3 together, that let us do this. In the medical journals, never, ever, ever do I see referenced, Otto Warburg came up with this, we did this, and then this guy came up. No, it's like nothing exists. There's no physiology, there's no biochemistry. It's just, this is what we do. And in medicine, the pharmacy companies, all they can do is block and impede. That's a beta blocker, cholesterol reductase inhibitor. They don't maximize anything. So everything I do is maximizing the body the way nature intended. I don't shut down anything. I don't impede anything. I do one thing, maximize what nature gave you. And it's not too hard to do. So that's one of the biggest things. Getting these oils, the inside of your artery, it's called the intima. It's where all the heart disease starts. Parent omega-6. So if you have a problem not getting it, you start getting a clogged artery. And it's been published that the problem is not from the body having it go bad once it's inside. That doesn't happen. It's ingested. So you're getting the defective oils from the supermarket. Any of the supermarkets, unless it's organic, are processed. The oxygenation is shut down. It doesn't work. And it goes in there because your body can't tell. It goes in as a proportion. So if you're eating 80% good stuff and 20% junk, your cell structure is 80-20. So it's easy to figure out. This is known, it's been published, it's linear. Whatever you eat, that same percentage is in the cell membrane. So Otto Warburg showed you have to have a 35% decrease of oxygen to get cancer. Well, and it could be intermittent, and it takes typically a decade to get it. So cancer just doesn't come on. You've been dealing with it for a long time, you just didn't know it. There's a threshold. So you can eat a pile of junk. You have that 35% level. If you eat 20% junk, as long as you get the 80% okay, you're in good shape. You're not going to get the problem. Everything is also tied to oxygenation, energy. How does the body fight infection? Oxygen. Ask any doctor. The body uses oxygen to fix almost everything. You're starved of oxygen in the brain, what's that called? A stroke. So the clogs are 85% adulterated parent omega-6. This is published, it's been analyzed, it's easy to do. You take a clog. Cardiologists don't even know what's in the clog. Now, of course there's some cholesterol in there. Cholesterol's a healer. But if you ask a cardiologist, what is that clog made of? Ask them next time you're there. Not one will say omega-6 that's adulterated and defective. Not one. They do not have a clue. So if you have a cardiologist that doesn't even know what's giving you that clog, do you think he can help you with a statin? No, the statins don't work at all. Horrible. And the proof of it is, just ask any cardiologist, okay, you prescribe a lot of statins, right? Oh, yes, they're standard of care. It's all they prescribe, tons of them. Are your waiting rooms half full, doc? And he'll look at you like you're crazy. And you got to ice yourself. They're overflowing, all of them. So their methods don't work. And now with the deductibles on insurance, let me tell you, you can't afford to get sick because the deductibles can be $5,000. Bless you. I mean, the premiums are through the roof with Obamacare, and then the deductibles are through the roof. You cannot afford to get sick. So if you don't learn this information on your own, you're in trouble. And now you have kids, 20s, 30s, heart attacks, cancer. They're getting all the diseases, degenerative diseases that used to happen at 50, 60, 70, 80. You're getting 30-year-olds with this stuff. Is it any wonder? No. It's the defective food. So the number one deficiency in America is not getting fully functional parent omega-6. It's never even talked about, which is unbelievable. Number two is there's 8 minerals that aren't in the food. Why? Well, because they don't use organic fertilizer. Nature designed it so the horse manure, the cow manure, those animals would dump out the minerals we need because humans get their minerals from animals. They go into the plant, but we can't get them from the plant. They're bound to cellulose. Remember, cellulose is sawdust. We don't have an enzyme to break it apart. We can't digest cellulose. It's not food for a human being. It's like paper. It is paper. You can't digest it. So if you eat some paper, it's not food. So these minerals are tied up to that, but when the animal eats them, it gets incorporated into the animal tissue, then we eat the animal, that's where we get our minerals. There's 8 of them, and many of them are tied to the oxygen production. So you get a double whammy. You're not getting the minerals that are coenzymes like vitamins. People talk about vitamins, they completely miss the minerals. Vitamins are way down the line from minerals. Your body can deal with getting enough vitamins almost always, but it's not getting the minerals. So you get a double whammy. You get the adulterated omega-6, and you don't get the minerals. So your oxygenation levels, very problematic. Next problem is they're throwing a lot of additives in food, right? Preservatives, hormones. You need a detoxifier. Now, the best one I've come across is called Essiac. It's an old Abjawa Indian cancer remedy. It is a phenomenal blood purifier. It kills things in the bloodstream that shouldn't be there. So it's very, very good for people with cancer because you want to impact metastasis as much as you can so everything dies if it's in the bloodstream, viruses, fungus, everything. So a detoxifier is critical. These oils also are the first line of defense against viruses. So everybody's talking like Zika in Florida, get a lot of people. These oils kill the virus. They embed it with the fat, and it can't work. So nobody asks, well, wait a minute, is this Zika virus something new? And the answer is no, it's been around forever. Well, why is it a problem now? Because your body can't defend against it. We're not getting the oils. Your natural defense is gone. So we're killing ourselves, bottom line. Unknowingly, but we are killing ourselves. These are the three biggest deficiencies in America. To me, they're fundamental for everybody. If you want to take other stuff after these three, fine. Most people don't need anything else, nor is there a scientific reason to take it. And what I tell everybody is, how do you tell if something works or not? Stop taking it. After you've taken it for a few months, stop taking it. And have enough self-awareness to realize, gee, I'm going to bed an hour earlier because I'm so tired, or my skin's not as smooth, or my fingernails are weak, or my hair's not growing the way it should. You know, you have to be able to see. But these oils, especially the parent omega-6 side, is so powerful, produces PGE1, which is the body's #1 anti-inflammatory. Cancer today, by the way, is called a disease of inflammation. What does chronic inflammation do? Remember, the body solves everything with oxygen. So if I have inflammation over here, it grabs the oxygen over here and takes it there. So this can turn cancerous because you have inflammation here. So you can get cancer in any tissue at all. It just depends where the biggest amount of that defective oil landed up. So you can explain a lot of things with this. There's two very good books, and I hope you at least get one of them. One's called PEO Solution for Parent Essential Oils. That was written with Robert Rowan, who's a raw foods vegan. Never in the history of publishing has there been a book with dual authors, one being a carnivore and one being a vegan. They typically hate each other's guts. But we both agree the common link is these oils. Now, you can get them from seeds, nuts, but they better be organic. Everybody will say, oh, the nuts have lots of omega-3. There's only one nut that has any omega-3 at all. There's tons of nuts, one does. And it's only 20% of the omega-6 level. So there's 5 times more of the omega-6 than the omega-3 in that nut, and they give the answer to that. Studies have come out with Seventh-day Advents. They eat a lot of walnuts, all omega-6, and they're wondering why they live so long and are so healthy. There's 5 cultures that have no fish, meaning no fish oil. They're just fine. So we keep getting misled, and the government is going to go broke with this. The insurance companies, you would think some of them would grab onto this by now. They haven't. There's nobody in pharmaceutical companies that specializes in physiologic lipids like I do. I asked the former head of Pfizer for cardiology. He was in charge of the drugs for cardiology, anything to do with the heart. I showed him some of my work. He goes, I don't understand the science. I said, well, don't you have people in the division that do this? No. So anybody that's talking about this, they're not in the medical field. They're typically in hydrocarbons, oil and gas, or plastics. They're not there. And remember, drug companies impede block. They're in a very tight straitjacket. This isn't impeding or blocking. They have no use for it. This maximizes. So when you get that PGE1, it's also a vasodilator. Increases blood flow to the brain. Guess what? Alzheimer's is going to take a hike. Alzheimer's is stuffed capillaries. There's hundreds of millions of capillaries in the brain, which are very, very small blood vessels, about 1 cell thick, all omega-6. That's the clog in the brain. That's Alzheimer's. They're not even close to it. They've gotten nowhere, and they will get nowhere if they don't utilize this. Wound healing. Your skin, it's all omega-6. So we're doing trials now at a university wound clinic to have people heal, and the results have been fantastic. We had 10 patients. The wound center by itself, between 1 week and 3 months of treatment, the average patient was worse 27%. Some of these wounds are hellacious. So they got worse. First month of being on my recommendations with these oils, just the oils, not the minerals, not the detoxifier, 25% improvement. So it went from minus 27 to plus 25. That's a 52% swing. And every month after, the average has been going up and up and up. So we're at 3 months. We're going to be going to 4. And we'll be doing a peer-reviewed journal article. It's called a case series. It's very exciting. They've never seen anything like this. And I just got an article approved today for publication. It's going to be talking about the theory of these oils in wound healing, because wound healing, there's no ingestible drug. I don't know if any of you have diabetic foot ulcer. It's a very bad problem with diabetics. 25% of diabetics get it. And a pile never heal. Almost 20% of these ulcers never heal. It means you're walking around with a sore. The reason they don't heal is because it's only indicative of typically a cardiovascular problem. You have no blood circulation, which means you get no oxygen and you get no nutrients going to the wound, so it can't heal itself. So this is very, very exciting. It's state-of-the-art stuff. It's going to make a big splash in the next few years in wound care. It goes on and on with the omega-6 side. It also makes prostacyclin, which is a natural blood thinner. So anybody that's on a blood thinner should not need to be on it if you take the right stuff. These parent oils, the omega-6 side, allow your body to make it. So the body is very, very good. See, the problem in medicine is the body is so good, the doctors can tell you to do everything wrong, and you're not dead till maybe 10 or 20 years out. They can't pin it on their wrong recommendations. Nothing else can happen. If I design the roof wrong, the first rainstorm or snowstorm, the whole roof goes in, everybody's dead. Well, I'm nailed because I can't wiggle out of it. But the medical profession gets to wiggle out of it all the time. My joke with the drug is, on a new trial, as long as you're not killed right away, the drug's good. It can be 6 months, a year later. You're doing other stuff, aren't you? It's not the drug. And so as long as you don't die in that trial right away, the drug goes on. And you've all seen Vioxx and everything else. Even the doctors don't believe the drug companies anymore, but they're stuck. They have nothing else they have a very small bag of tricks. Outside of a statin, they don't know what to do. Beta blockers they were using for years. Article came out in 2014, they're worthless for stopping cardiovascular disease. This was a frontline thing. Everybody was on a beta blocker. What does it do? It knocks the blood flow down by half. So you're making your heart, instead of going boom and producing this much blood, it's producing this. It's like you have a fire hose. I double the water. Well, the pressure goes up. So I cut the water in half, the pressure goes down. Well, did anybody think maybe you're not getting enough nutrients now? You're not getting enough oxygen? You're not getting enough of anything because you cut the blood flow in half? I mean, it's like trying to drink a water with a trickle. They don't connect any dots. They just look at something very in front of them. And I'm a systems guy. I connect the dots. So when I read journal articles, it's like, oh, they're saying this, that implies that implies this, that implies that. Did you actually mean this? And the answer is always, they didn't even look at it. I had one guy, big doctor, big name doctor in sports. He wrote a whole book. And I said, I have one problem with your book. And he goes, what? I said, well, to get the amount that you're telling people to take would be, so it's resveratrol, something in wine or grapes. I said, you need to be taking 1,000 or 100 or 1,000 bottles of wine a day. And he goes, right. I said, doesn't that concern you? Who the hell would ever do such a thing? You know what his comment was? You got a good point there. This was published by like Random House. This was a major book. Then the drug company that was working on this threw the whole thing in the ash can because it was BS. They spent $880 million and canned the program. So the drug companies don't even know what they're doing. It's the blind leading the blind. It's a very, very horrible state of affairs. Most diseases, if you have arthritis, you're not getting enough blood flow PGE1. That's the biggest anti-inflammatory. It's phenomenal what this can do. I like having a lot of time for questions and answers. These are the three things I focus on, mainly on the oils because they're tied to everything. And if you're at the cell level, well, cells make up tissue. Tissue makes up organs. But nobody does. And I've even lectured, and gave a big lecture in Las Vegas in cardiology. At the end of it, doctor comes up. I love the physiologic approach you have because you can't lie with it. He goes, understand, nobody in the audience knew what you were talking about after the first 5 minutes. He goes, even I didn't. I said, well, doc, you got to understand, I'm giving you 10 years down your throat in 40 minutes. I said, all I can expect to do is to get you interested and go, This looks interesting. The guy doesn't really equivocate too much. Maybe I ought to look at this. I said, don't physicians get courses in physiology? Don't they get degrees in it? He goes, heck no. It's way too hard. They want nothing to do with it. So it's unbelievable to most people when I say something like this. If you knew how little a physician actually knew, you'd throw up. You know the big thing? I have the best cardiologist. He has the best cardiologist. She has the best cardiologist. He has the best cardiologist. And you know what's really funny? It's the same town and it's all a different guy. Everybody wants to think they have the best. And then you ask, what makes him the best? My mother was going to a cardiologist. He had a heart attack. And I said, Mom, why on earth are you going to a guy that gets a heart attack himself that's supposed to be telling you how not to get it? Well, he's just so nice. And I said, don't you have friends for that? I said, you don't want a doctor that's nice. You want a doctor that knows what he's doing. Not there to be his friend. It's horrible. It's horrible. Personal experience, my father had a stage 0 cancer in his urethra. And, of course, relatives don't listen to anything, so all the work I've done are my parents following what I say. No. But friends don't. Almost nobody does. It's called familiarity breeds contempt, so it's very hard. Even doctors, their family doesn't listen to them. They listen to some guy off the street, but they won't listen to him. Even Jesus had to leave his hometown. If you've read the Bible, he wasn't listened to. They wouldn't listen to him. He had to go 40 miles away. So it's it's psychological law. Familiarity breeds contempt. So I got a call from my mother. You know, your father's real bad. He broke his hip, and then he has this urethra thing, and he had pneumonia, and he's got sepsis. If you know what sepsis is, it's a systemic infection. So this is after about 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks. And she goes, I don't know if he's going to make it. And I'm saying, what? I said, I'll be up there on the weekend. So I get a ticket, see the doctor. And I said, you know, this is what I do. I specialize in this. He's going to be taking this. I'll sign any damn thing you want. But this is what I do. And he takes a look at, what I'm doing. He goes, I don't have a problem with this. So he was very good that he was open because, number one, he's failing. They don't want a dead patient. It's not good for business, is it? They're looking at business, I assure you. And he was a younger guy, so he's open to stuff. He's probably in his 40s. I said, give me 3 days. Day 3, he was blood in the urine. Every time he'd go to the bathroom, he'd be screaming. It was horrible. He looked half dead. I said, give me 3 days. I made him take 16 oil capsules a day. I made him take cups of the liquid herbal because it's very soothing, anti-inflammatory. It coats the whole digestive system. And again, urethra, that was it. 3 days to the minute. The blood's gone in the urine. He's not screaming anymore when he urinates. And he looks half human again. 4 more days out of the hospital. The doctor could not believe it. And every time father goes back to the doctor, and of course the cancer thing is gone, it's stage 0. He's not going to have any problem. He goes, make sure you keep taking what your son told you. The doctor says it. Because they don't get results like that. Now, they never apply it to anybody else. They go, hey, it's wonderful it worked for you because you're so special. They never go, what the heck are you doing? I need this. 99% of the time. One, I had a very big name radiologist who was actual chairman of the Pathology Society for America. And he called me up from Florida and said, I've got a patient who's reversed arterial clogging and he smokes. He goes, I've never seen more than 5% hard plaque reversal in a patient, and I've never seen it any in a smoker. This guy's at about 20% annualized. What the heck is he? And the guy tracked me down. He called me. It's the only time I've ever had that happen, and his patients are taking it. Then the guy stopped taking it. Plaque came back. So that is perfect cause-effect. For arterial issues, we did something called Iowa study, investigating oils with respect to arterial health. Started people, you can measure the blood flow with a pulse oximeter and some nice software. So you put your finger in, it measures hemoglobin in the blood and looks at it over time. So you can tell blood flow. Fish oil made people 4 years worse. Doing nothing, just taking a fish oil, your vascular system is 4 years worse than if you didn't take the fish oil at all. taking these oils was about almost 8 years younger biologically in the arterial system. Doing nothing, and this was within 3 months. So very fast. So you can measure this, and it works, and it's not open to discussion. I like starting with the science. So I always use studies and experiments to confirm the science, not be opposite to it. Most of the time I look at journal studies done, and it's like, this can't be because it's opposite to the science I know. And it gets published anyway. See, today all that counts is publishing papers. If you're a doctor at a university, if you're a doctor at a hospital, how many papers have you published? Oh, you've done 100, you've done 400, you're way the hell better. You're going to get more money. My first question is, out of the number one, you didn't do 400. You slap your name on it because your graduate students are doing it. Out of the 400 papers, what's been accomplished? What? Yeah. What big discovery came from your 400 papers? Do you have a new drug? Do you have a new therapy? Do you have... No. It leads nowhere. It's horrible. I stopped reading the papers. I used to go through abstracts and summaries of about 600 a week. I would spend hours because there's different services you can get that tell you all this stuff. Out of the 600 in a week, 2 should have even been published because the rest were either stupid to begin with or a conclusion that's already known. It's like you don't keep doing the same experiment if you already know the results. It's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. It makes no difference, and many of the studies can't be replicated. And if you ask the doctor that did it, it's like, well, we don't get paid to duplicate them. You know, we're on to the next thing. And they never stay in one field. It's very rare you find somebody like me. I stay in this, that's it, 20 years. I don't deviate. Now, it turns out in this little is a lot. And, you know, doctors ask, you know, I typically write for doctors. And typically my time is spent with doctors. But you have to be able to answer things. That's why I did the 24-hour diet, because they didn't know what the heck to eat. Even though I read the same medical textbooks they do, they're reading the book to pass a test. I'm reading it to understand a system. So what I'm going in with is very, very different than what they are, because it's the same medical textbooks. And I may spend a lot more time on it too. They get it slammed down their throat, and they just pick and choose. I look at the whole thing and make sure it's consistent. Like you look at salt, and they may know a lot about salt, but systemically in the whole body, they don't. Turns out people taking the least amount of salt have the most heart disease. Israel has no salt restriction diets. I mean, we are insane. Salt is the #1 extracellular nutrient. You need salt. Salt is never the cause of high blood pressure, never. Within 3 days, diuretic hormone takes care of it. I could feed you 10 times the amount of salt, shove it down your throat. Within 3 days, you're going to be normalized again. But you want to know a solution. Your doctor knows very few things. He's going to say anything just to shut you the hell up. It's like you're paying me for an answer. He can't sit there saying, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. You want an answer? I'll give you one. It's going to be wrong, but you're getting an answer. I won't do that. If I don't know, I say, I don't know. You know, not the guy to ask her, I just don't know. And if you publish something, you're obligated to say everything that doesn't agree with it. So when you put a theory out there, and Richard Feynman, a Nobel Prize winner in physics, said this, you're the easiest person in the world to fool. That means the guy doing the experiment or the study, because you want a certain result. And that's fair. Everybody always hopes it's going to do something. But you better follow the science, what happened. You can't come up with, this happened, and then come up with the craziest reason why. And in medical papers, they have something called the discussion section. And the discussion section is typically multi-pages explaining why the thing is opposite to the way they expected, or the craziest stuff you've ever read. It's like, I call them brilliant idiots. And I took a long time to come up with this, because they're brilliant in what they can analyze. And believe me, brilliant. Brilliant work. But then their conclusions are idiotic. It's like the genetic thing. To map that out, that's brilliant work. Absolutely brilliant work. But there's a lot of problems with it. And if everything was, see, the genetics are a result of a problem. So, for example, I take a blowtorch and blow, burn your whole arm. You think the DNA in your arm's changed? The answer is, of course it is, because your skin's not going to grow back. But what caused it? The damn blowtorch. It's the same thing. If I eat the wrong stuff, you don't have the fuel, you don't have the structure in your body. And that's a field called epigenetics, which is very big, by the way. But there's no money in it. Epigenetics means it's not genetic. It should be called anti-genetics. But it's the environment. So everything is the environment and what you're eating. They were so bad that they didn't even understand these oils go into the brain. There's something called the blood-brain barrier. Those oils don't penetrate it. Well, then how the hell did I get the DHA and EPA in there in the first place? I mean, the stuff they say, nutrition doesn't matter. Fine, I can eat plastic. Well, no, that's not good. You just said nutrition doesn't matter. So now there's different grades. So if I'm eating something kind of like a plastic, is that going to be a problem? Well, yeah, then you can get them to logically go, yeah, well, you just did it with this adulterated oil. Because if you look at the structure of it, it's plasticized. So you got to lead them along. And like I said, 2 books I've done. One's called PEO Solution, Parent Essential Oils. And I write very scientifically with the references, but I explain everything. So you will see, and I'm about the only one that does this, the exact quotes out of the medical textbooks. On the page. You don't have to go to the end somewhere and figure out what reference, it's right on the page. Number 2, and you look at 2, here's the quote. And then I'll explain what it means if it's technical. But you get to see exactly what's written, because more often than not, the summary is not what was meant or what was even done. They love selling headlines, and it's horrible what they do. There's no integrity. You hear them talking politics, there's no journalistic integrity anymore. Well, there's no medical integrity anymore either. Many times the medical papers, they don't even care about the footnotes. They'll just load them up, and they're wrong. And they know nobody reads them. Nobody reads them. I have 50 footnotes, you got 20, I'm better. Yeah, but this is made up stuff. It is? Yeah. It's unbelievable how bad things are. And everything is getting worse. That's the proof. If they knew what they were talking about, why is everybody so sick? Organic food it goes up about 10% a year because people will spend the money not to get sick, but that's not enough. So if you're spending any money on organics, spend it on the fat. So eggs, butter, bacon, cheese, cream, because all the residual screw up and the hormones and everything else goes into the fat. So that's where you want the non-adulteration to occur. So those are the areas, anything that has natural fat in it, you want organic. Fruits and vegetables, secondary. Meats, they load them up with steroid hormones, typically estrogenic, and that's where the residues come from. So women that are saying they're overdosed on estrogen, it's from what you're eating. It's not your body doing it. That's insane. It's what you're eating. And that's why men's sperm counts are down by half, because we're taking all this female hormone in, screwing us up. It's really a mess. It's all caused by the food. It's all documented, but we have information overload today, and it's too easy to get it. You just type in anything on the internet, but you don't have the discernment. So I tell people, I can't give you the discernment to discern the difference between tin and gold. You have to have that. Because people get to me all the time, well, you say this and this guy says this. I say, yeah, but isn't there a difference in how they write it? What do you mean? I said, I have multiple scientific references from medical textbook. This guy has nothing. You want to just sit in a typewriter and make it up? Great. You want to believe it? You're an idiot. And my other joke is people are stupid as heck today, but it's because they're all PEO deficient. They all have adulterated oils. You can't think. You have no attention. These are the 2 biggest problems of this deficiency. 0 attention, and your thought process just isn't. You can't do it. It's horrible. And this is the kids. They're getting these processed oils in everything they eat. It's normal. It's become accepted. No, it isn't. They got rid of the trans fats in New York, right? You all heard about the trans fat ban. First question when this came out, talking to a colleague, I said, yeah, real good, huh? He goes, yeah, it's great. I said, what do you think they replaced it with? What? What do you think they replaced it with? I don't know. I said, it's worse than the trans fat. It's called interesterified fat. Put your blood sugar through the roof, so it's creating more diabetics. Nobody asked this. I saw one article the other day where somebody talked about it, but I mean, it's very rare. So they get rid of one thing and they replace it with something that's even worse. It's a horrible state of affairs. So I really hope that you will get one of those books. If you care about the diet thing for weight, 24-hour diet. If you care about general, it's all the same information, of course. It has to be consistent. It's the same stuff, but it's completely different format. If you're concerned about fish oil, talk extensively in the chapter, I think it's chapter 7, about how bad fish oil is and how much has been written about how bad it is. Took them 20 years to con everybody, by the way, into buying fish oil, because I was around when it first started. And I would talk to the wholesalers and say, are you selling any of this? No, no, no. But after 15 years, hundreds of millions of dollars, where do you think that fish oil came from? Rotten fish. Think about it. I'm going to take good quality fish that I could be selling to a restaurant and juice it, because that's basically what fish oil is, juiced fish. Now, taking spoiled junk to begin with, and that's where it started. So my other big joke in the nutritional industry is you have a waste product, sell it to the nutrition industry, because people are so desperate they'll buy anything. Chitosan, I think, was ground up eggshell. You think eggshell is a food? Or, I mean, it's insane. They'll do anything. So again, hopefully you'll get one of those 2 books, Pile of Science. You need to go over it. Most doctors read it 3 times, by the way. It's like trying to take a drink from a fire hose. There's just so much in there. Go through the whole thing one time. Don't worry about details. Then go back a second time. And you could take even a month between them and read it again, and it'll be, my God, this answers this. Because this took decades to do this. I would find here, and then fill in the hole there, and then fill. It was not all sequential the way the book is. By no means. I would have multiple questions from, in cancer, for example. What's the difference between a benign tumor and a solid, full-blown cancer tumor? I'd go to MD Anderson. I never got a good answer from him. Well, it's the difference between that respiration. Remember I told you in the mitochondria it's cellular energy? Well, it's called cellular respiration. At the cell level, like you're breathing in and out using oxygen, well, the same thing happens at the cell. But if that stops, the cell can't use oxygen and it just uses sugar, like yeast does. And this is where you get the cancer thing. Oh, it's just a dumb cell that grows. Well, that's true. It's like a yeast, just grows and grows, gets bigger and bigger. It's dumb, can't do anything. Oxygen is intelligence. But that's not the distinguishing feature of cancer, that's a result. The distinguishing feature is cancer isn't using oxygen. It's too dumb. So cancer is a defense mechanism so your body doesn't die right away. If you're not getting the oxygen, the organ can die. So instead of having the organ die, it says, okay, I'll let you live using sugar, which is real inefficient. We're going to get rid of the intelligence, but I don't have a choice. But you have a lot of time to fix this, and I hope you fix it. Of course, we never do. It just gets worse, and we just keep getting more and more cancer. But this is all in the books, and I really hope you read them. So you could even spend, I'd rather end a little early and take 5 minutes and thumb through one of the books so you can see what it's like. I guarantee you'll understand it. My joke is I write for doctors. They're not the smartest things in the world on average, okay? So I have to make it pretty simple. Now, in fairness to them, they're very overwhelmed with patients. Last thing they want to do is spend extra time when they're out of the clinic treating people, reading this stuff. They're just sick of it. They're just overdosed with it. So I'm very empathetic to them, and of course, I have tons of colleagues around the world, but they all come to me. They'll go, Brian, I read one of your papers. You've answered why the fish oil doesn't work. You've answered why the statins don't work. You've answered why So I'm giving them an answer based in science that they understand to solve a problem. But most physicians are absolutely delusional. They think a statin is working. They actually do, even though it's 99% failure. Horrible state of affairs. So let me take, at least 10 minutes, if not 15 minutes, and you could definitely take a look at the books out there. And I'm not big on supplements until you understand why you may need them. By law, I can't recommend supplements, but I can certainly tell people what they need. It needs to be organic, needs to be more parent omega-6 and omega-3, should have some GLA so you get maximum PGE1. Those are the kind of things. And as long as those are met, Turns out it's very hard to get them because everybody's backwards in this. Nobody looks at the physiology. One last thing I'll leave you with. Fish oil, I've never read a paper, how do we come up with a dose of how much you need of this stuff? Ever. Just you take this. Well, does that make sense? Then I read a paper in 2010 from National Institutes of Health. They radioisotoped DHA in the brain. How much goes in every day? 7.2 milligrams, which is next to nothing. I say, okay, double it. I'll give you 15 milligrams a day. That's all you need of DHA. Take a look at your fish oil capsule. Those of you that are taking that, how much you're getting and how many capsules you're taking. You're getting overdosed 20 to 500 times. Horrible state of affairs, and doctors actually think this works. It's a pile of concussion doctors telling people to do this. And you may be able to do it for a month, but you do this long term, it acts like a steroid. It shuts down all the eicosanoid production. That's what these things are called eicosanoids, prostaglandins, leukotriene. It's a whole field. This is very complicated stuff, but it's all known. Fish oil shuts it down, just like a steroid. This is why I'd always used to lecture and give 15 things that fish oil was bad for, and you always get the doctor going, dermatologist, yeah, but it helps my eczema patients, my psoriasis patients, and I couldn't figure out why. I'm going, yeah, but it's doing these 15 other things badly. They didn't care. Then a dermatologist sends me an email. He goes, I heard you at the last lecture. I'm shocked that you missed this yourself because you've always said fish oil acts like a steroid. I said, yeah. He goes, well, that's what you use for psoriasis and eczema and like Humira. That's one of the biggest selling drugs there is. It's a steroid, or steroidal-like. I don't know if they call it that, but that's essentially what it's doing. So you knock out your immune system. That's what you're doing. You're shutting down your immune system. If you ever wonder why they say, if you have a disease or, this or exposed to that, check with your doctor before you start taking this. You have no immune system if you're taking one of these drugs. I can't believe that it's even legal. First Hippocratic oath, do no harm. Well, you're just telling me you're wiping out my immune system so I can get sick and die of, yeah. And then if you're taking something like a steroid, break a bone, see how it heals. Won't. It won't. Nothing will heal. So oftentimes the drug and the symptoms are worse than the result. Never mind the side effects. I'm not even talking about the side effects. I'm just saying what it does. Horrible state of affairs. So I only take 15 minutes, and then I'll be happy to answer as many questions as I can. And I'm sure you'll have a lot of them. Thanks.